But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd.
Frustrated at times, angered and upset by this round of tariffs, and Canadians, by and large.
President Trump declared the liberation of America by imposing global tariffs. But with Canada, that's not liberation. It's economic invasion, and one of the world's closest alliances is starting to crumble.
We help everybody, and they don't help us.
President Trump called April 2nd Liberation Day, marking the day the U.S. imposed new tariffs to liberate the national economy from reliance on imported goods. However, for Canada, this was not liberation, but an economic invasion. The U.S. imposing a 25% tariff on steel, aluminum, and cars imported from Canada has pushed the trade relationship between the two countries into unprecedented tension. According to reports, this decision could impact around $474 billion worth of products related to the automotive industry between the U.S. and its trade partners, with Canada being one of the largest suppliers. While President Trump views the imposition of tariffs as a necessary step to protect the U.S. economy, Canada sees it as a madness. Previously, former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that Canada would impose a 25% tariff on goods worth $155 billion Canadian dollars, approximately $107 billion from the U.S. starting March 4th if the Trump administration proceeds with the proposed tariffs on Canadian goods. This move shows that Canada will not stand idle in the face of hardline trade measures from the U.S. The relationship between the U.S. and Canada is not only tense economically, but also shows signs of disrespect in diplomacy. President Trump once referred to Prime Minister Trudeau as governor, as if Canada were just a 51st state of the U.S.
I would love to see Canada be the 51st state. The Canadian citizens, if that happened, would get a very big tax cut, tremendous tax cut, because they're very highly taxed. And you wouldn't have to worry about military. You wouldn't have to worry about many of the things. You'd have better health coverage. You'd have much better health coverage. So I think the people of Canada would like it, if it's explained.
This was an insult that the people of Canada had never faced from any previous U.S. president. The leader of Newfoundland openly expressed concern about an imperial agenda from the White House, showing deep dissatisfaction with the U.S. approach. Canada did not remain silent in the face of U.S. tariffs. Prime Minister Mark Carney emphasized that Canada would respond in a proportionate and responsible manner. The people of Canada, from veterans who fought alongside the U.S. to dual citizens, feel betrayed and support the government in protecting the national interests. The wave of anger is spreading not only within the government, but also among the people, raising questions about the reliability of the U.S. as an ally. The 25% tariff on imported cars is expected to have negative impacts on both the U.S. and the global economy. Estimates suggest that the new tariff could increase the cost of each domestically produced car by around $3,000, while vehicles made in Canada or Mexico could see a price hike of up to $6,000. This will not only affect consumers, but could also lead to a decrease in sales and job losses in the automotive industry. Moreover, the global financial markets have reacted negatively to the potential escalation of the trade war, with the S&P 500 dropping 2% after President Trump's announcement. President Trump's decision to impose tariffs not only shook the global economy, but also harmed the diplomatic relations between the U.S. and its close allies, like Canada.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
While the U.S. seeks to protect its domestic economy, these measures raise questions about America's commitment to free trade and international cooperation. Trump calls it liberation. But if even you want to withdraw, is this still a leadership strategy or just a diplomatic bridge burning? When a former U.S. president has a meltdown at 2 a.m., posting like a heartbroken teenager just to threaten the world, you know something serious is wrong with America. 2 a.m., a president, or just an ex? In the middle of the night, while most of America was still asleep, Donald Trump's social media lit up like a teenage breakup. More than 10 posts in just 1 hour, and right in the middle of it, a bombshell. If the EU and Canada team up, I'll slap them with killer tariffs. Not a formal speech, not an official statement, just a midnight threat, typed out like someone just broke up with the country. This led many to ask, is this a strategic move or the sign of a man losing control? Is it a last-ditch attempt to distract the public while the ground beneath him quietly begins to shift? And if that's true, then America's real problem may be bigger than tariffs. Less than 24 hours later, the backlash begins. It didn't take long. Within 24 hours of Trump's late-night posts, America's oldest allies began pushing back. Hard. Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, a man once seen as one of Trump's biggest fans, suddenly flipped. We'll make sure the U.S. feels the pain. I'm sorry for the American people, but this is on Trump. Then came France, then the UK, then the entire European Union, all backing a new trade alliance with Canada. Without the United States, they were once best friends forever. Now, it's block, unplug, and remove from trusted partners list. One EU trade advisor even joked, Trump used to host the party. Now, he's locked outside the living room. In global politics, there's no room for 2 a.m. tantrums. One tweet in the wrong tone, and you risk losing alliances that took decades to build. The American wallet is screaming. While Trump's busy picking fights with longtime allies, everyday Americans are staring down a spending crisis. A survey from the University of Michigan shows consumer confidence has hit a 15-year low. Rent is rising. Wages can't keep up with inflation. And basic living costs are crushing family budgets. Some experts warn, those 2 a.m. tweets aren't just impulsive. They're a distraction tactic. When the economy's in chaos, picking a fight overseas becomes the easiest way to divert attention. A Bloomberg analyst put it best. Americans don't care who yells the loudest. They care who makes life a little easier. He says, make America great again. But all we see is make recession real fast. From America first to America alone, Trump once said, America first. But now, it's starting to look more like America alone. Major U.S. companies, Tesla, Apple, GM, they're quietly shifting production lines to Canada and the EU, all to avoid the risks of sudden U.S. policy swings. Within 48 hours of Trump's latest tariff threats, stock prices for major manufacturers plunged. Investors got the message. Political chaos is not a business model. You can't lead the world if the world no longer wants to follow, because no one wants to build their future in a market where tomorrow could be undone by a late-night emotional post. True leadership doesn't shout. It earns trust. Not everyone wants to stay at the party. In a world full of uncertainty, what countries and businesses need most is stability and trust. But if a nation keeps changing its message, threatening partners, and shaking confidence in the market, then no matter how grand the party may be, guests will start leaving. Allies need consistency. Investors need to calculate risk. And the American people? They need answers for tomorrow, not midnight promises made in the dark. If someone wakes up at 2 a.m. just to threaten the world, then we have to ask, are they really in control of the situation? Or is the situation controlling them? The Lincoln Project's 8 parody videos where Trump is mercilessly mocked leave the president so angry that he throws his phone into the water. Trump and his uncontrolled rage. You probably can't imagine a president showing such outbursts of anger. While Trump continues to appear confident, sometimes even arrogant, in a series of parody videos by the Lincoln Project, he reveals his frustration and loss of control. The first scene in the video shows Trump walking onto the golf course, confident as if he's the master of the game. But when his shot fails, he starts blaming everything around him. The fake golf ball, the imperfect golf club. This scene becomes even more hilarious as Trump continuously criticizes everything around him, yet fails to recognize that his lack of control is the real issue. The caddy standing nearby can only shake his head, as if he's witnessing a mental breakdown right on the golf course. The loss of control doesn't end on the golf course. These hilarious situations not only make the audience laugh, but they also raise a big question. If someone can't control their emotions while playing golf, can they run a country with stability? When Trump fails to make the shot, he becomes even more angry, blaming everything, from the golf ball to the outside forces. Will he handle major national issues in the same way? By blaming and raging instead of finding solutions? But it doesn't stop there. As he faces failure, Trump becomes even more out of control. His second shot is even worse, and the golfers around him try to avoid looking at him, not wanting to become witnesses to the mental crisis unfolding. Finally, Trump loses it. throwing his expensive golf club to the ground, screaming about the injustice he has to endure. This scene becomes even more uncomfortable as Trump continues blaming the wind and terrain instead of accepting that it's his own lack of skills. The golfers around him silently watch, afraid to laugh or show sympathy because they know that this kind of rage could explode at any moment. When Trump lost Twitter, he became a social media addict. So, what happens when Trump can't use Twitter anymore? The next series of videos by the Lincoln Project shows Trump like a social media addict, aimlessly trying to regain the power he's lost. Unable to post on Twitter, Trump turns to other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok. This awkward attempt makes the viewers laugh, but could this be a sign of impotence when faced with reality? On Trump's face, we can clearly see the confusion when he realizes his Twitter account has been permanently locked. Instead of accepting the reality, he sinks deeper into anger, showing his disappointment and refusal to accept it. Not only that, Trump becomes even more confused when other platforms don't help him, causing him to scroll through apps as if he's searching for a savior. Every time he tries to open a new platform, his face becomes even more red, as if facing a world of technology he can't control. Finally, his frustration reaches its peak, and Trump can only continue to blame the outside forces instead of confronting the truth. His social media power has come to an end. In the end, in a fit of rage, Trump throws his expensive phone into the pond. A move that makes one wonder, does this action reflect his lack of leadership when faced with greater challenges and difficulties? What's notable is that, while Trump does this, he still confidently claims to have a stable temperament. But the reality is completely the opposite. These outbursts of anger, these uncontrolled actions are exactly why people are concerned about his leadership ability. The Lincoln Project wants to highlight this. If someone can't control their emotions while playing golf, how can they possibly face the big challenges of running a country? If someone can't control their anger on the golf course, can they handle the critical decisions of a country? Trump went bankrupt even with a casino, yet calls himself a business genius. Former Congressman Adam Kinzinger just exposed Trump on live TV, revealing everything.
Is a weak man pretending to be strong.
In an unscripted, no-holds-barred interview, Adam Kinzinger did what no one dared to do. He not only criticized Trump, but bluntly exposed his image. Kinzinger called Trump a weakling who always pretends to be strong. He even described Trump as a 6-year-old child, constantly craving recognition from his father.
Not going to take on actual tough people because then he may have a fight, and he's a coward. I mean, he really is scared to death. He's like I think of a 6-year-old boy that's still trying to earn his father's approval. That's Donald Trump.
A man who is always afraid to face the truth about himself. A ruthless statement from someone who was once an ally of the Republican Party. But that's not all. Kinzinger didn't hesitate to criticize Trump for his response during the Capitol riot.
Our democracy was frayed by the events of January 6th, as Donald Trump's deceit and dishonor led to a siege on the United States Capitol.
A leader who pretends to be tough but hid in the White House when the riot broke out, Kinzinger said, highlighting Trump's weakness when facing a crisis.
Pretending to be big. He's a faithless man, pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim.
If you've been following Trump for a long time, you've probably noticed one thing. Every failure of his has an outside culprit, never himself. Kinzinger didn't hesitate to criticize Trump for always playing the victim, whether it's being accused of mishandling classified documents or even a wrong McDonald's order. Trump could trip on the golf course and always find a way to blame the FBI, the wind, immigration, and even wind turbines. It's all a conspiracy to bring him down, Kinzinger mocked.
I'm going to tell him he was the worst president the United States of America ever had. He was a liar, he was a charlatan, and he was a man with a more fragile ego than anybody I've ever met, which the irony of it is, he walks around like the tough guy, but he's the one that gets more offended and wounded and sad than anybody I know.
Perhaps the name Donald Trump is inseparable from the phrase witch hunt. Every time he faces criticism, Trump spins a new story. Every failure of his is always justified as being played dirty. Former allies, if they no longer obey, they will be labeled as rhino, Republicans in name only, or deep state. Kinzinger made this clear. Trump has never taken responsibility for anything, whether it's a failure or political devastation. Trump claims to be a business genius, but if you look back at his career, you'll see a completely different picture. Kinzinger couldn't help but mock Trump's business skills, a man who bankrupted a casino, where even the mafia could make a profit. Kinzinger likened Trump to a skilled chef, but one who could still burn the water. Despite this, Trump's supporters still call him a genius, even though he couldn't even manage a casino, where the house always wins.
Listen, this dude knows, he knows that this is like the thing that embarrasses him. He won't admit it embarrasses him because he's trying to like pretend like he didn't do anything. He's obsessed. He's more obsessed with like me and Liz Cheney than his freaking golf score. Hey, Trump, bring it on, dude. You weak, whiny, tiny man.
Trump is not afraid of the law. Trump is not afraid of prison. What he truly fears is being exposed for what he is, a fraud. And in just a few minutes, Kinzinger did exactly that. He not only revealed Trump's weakness, but also shattered the myth Trump had spent years building. With Kinzinger's uncompromising criticism, the American people will have to ask themselves, can we continue to empower someone who only blames everything and never takes responsibility? Do we truly want a leader like that to guide our country, or should we seek someone who can actually change things and restore trust in government? These questions are not just theoretical, they have a direct impact on us, the citizens, the voters, and those seeking a government that is transparent, honest, and strong.
Over 91 million Americans once voted for him, but by the end of 2024, Donald Trump faces over 30 lawsuits, from financial fraud, tax evasion, to inciting a riot. So why do millions still believe in him? Michael Moore has an answer, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, it's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States?
These were the words veteran filmmaker Michael Moore said live on air. A statement like a razor, cutting through years of silence from mainstream media. This wasn't just emotional rhetoric. It was a strip down of every glamorous layer that had shielded Trump's image for years.
The average normal American wants to hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here.
Moore made it clear. America is a nation of immigrants. By saying this, he completely undercut the divisive anti-immigrant narrative Trump had leaned on in every campaign. According to a 2023 Pew Research survey, 78% of immigrants in the U.S. felt directly offended by Trump's comments about the border and immigration.
Is going to be the biggest feud ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good. For a day. Yeah, maybe a week. Possibly a month. And then, like the Brits, who wanted to send a message, so they voted to leave Europe, only to find out that if you vote to leave Europe, you actually have to leave Europe.
But Moore didn't stop there. He compared Trump to Brexit, a spontaneous, reckless decision that cost an entire nation. He warned that America could be next if it doesn't recognize the pattern.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's done a good job.
That's how Moore described Trump's behavior when under pressure. According to Gallup, 71% of Americans believe Trump never takes personal responsibility, the highest percentage for any U.S. president post-term.
That Donald Trump is a big believer in capitalism and free enterprise and the sort of thing that's driven us into the ground, this belief that you could just do whatever you want and it doesn't matter who gets hurt by it. And I don't really see him changing, but I think he knows he's been on TV. You know, I mean, he's a performance artist. He knows what to say and he knows how to make this appeal.
You think it's BS?
I think it's, well, please, I don't use that kind.
Moore exposed the myth of Trump, the business genius. According to Forbes in 2022, Trump filed for bankruptcy 6 times, including Trump Plaza Hotel, Trump Taj Mahal, and Trump Airlines. This wasn't just bad luck. It was a system of repeated failure.
He knows something. He knows how to manipulate a dumbed-down population whose schools have been wrecked, whose media is just insipid and stupid and doesn't give people the facts about what's going on. So the public is easily manipulated by somebody like him, those who vote for him. He had record turnouts. He has the largest rallies.
Moore called Trump's political career a slow-motion car crash. In 2024 alone, Trump faced 91 criminal charges, including campaign abuse, tax fraud, obstruction of federal investigations, and inciting the January 6th riot. Trump isn't facing justice, Moore said. He's using the system to keep performing.
For me, Donald Trump outsmarted us all. And then there's a little throw up in everyone.
Yes, Moore even mocked Trump's ridiculous attempts to monetize his fame. According to the Washington Post, 1,000 pairs were sold in the first 2 days. But over 40% were returned. A perfect metaphor, Moore explained. If failure were profitable, Trump would be the richest man alive. But Moore's deepest fear wasn't Trump himself. It was the millions of Americans who still believe he's the only one who can save America.
You live here in Ohio. You know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
And that is why this battle is far from over. Don't blink, because what comes next might just shock you.